Hello and welcome. Show number 3, The Voices of Reasons. We got some extra tech going on here. We're going to try some stuff out, see how this works. Coming at you guys from House Stoyan. With all the Game of Thrones, I thought it was fitting just to do House Stoyan.
That's fantastic.
I love it.
I think it's dumb.
So with us today, we have Mr. Andy Berry.
Hello, how are you?
Mr. John Moffat.
Good evening.
And Mr. Nick Stoyan.
I am the lord of this house.
He is the lord of this house.
Bow before him.
He's sitting on his iron throne. Well, his porcelain throne.
We're not recording
comfort
about
is
it.
comfort, all right?
All right, so here's what we're going to do. We're going to jump right into this. First segment.
Let's do it.
You guys ready?
I'm ready.
I'm ready.
Are you sure?
Surprise
what's the
me.
first segment?
Ready?
In the 2019 NFL Draft,
Oh, boy.
the Arizona Cardinals select Kyler Murray, quarterback, Oklahoma.
So there it was.
It happened.
First pick, Kyler Murray,
I mean, I drafted the NFC West, and I took that.
going to the Arizona Cardinals. Josh Rosen, shipped out
In the second round.
Unceremoniously.
to the Miami Dolphins.
What a raw deal.
What are your guys' thoughts on the first pick of the draft?
Good luck.
He should have played baseball. Like, why would you take that football contract when you can make 10 times the money?
I agree. 100%.
God, I would love to be a bullpen pitcher in the major leagues. Pitch every 5th day, do nothing.
Right.
Bank.
So wasn't there something in his contract, though, where they negotiating the potential of him still going and playing baseball? Isn't that still an option for him? Or was it 100% Nick, done?
I don't recall. I do remember when they negotiated out of the deal with the Oakland Athletics that he had to return some money.
Yeah, he had to return his signing bonus.
That was correct.
But I thought I saw something recently about Arizona and him coming to some type of agreement.
I think they should probably find out if he's any good first.
Yeah.
Spoiler alert, he's not.
I think they're in a lot of trouble.
Well, I mean, let's think about this from an offensive scheme perspective. Does it really require somebody with Kyler Murray's skill set to be able to run an air raid offense? Yes or no?
Not really.
No.
I mean, because I kept thinking about the old Texas Tech teams, and one of their quarterbacks who lit up opposing defenses was Graham Harrell, and we've never heard of him since.
He went to Green Bay, did he not?
Who?
Exactly. And I believe that is accurate. I do believe he went to Green Bay for a little bit, but
Yeah, I think he started as Rodgers' backup and then eventually became the backup for Drew Brees in New Orleans.
yeah,
I think
that's
that
probably right.
Where he was finally laid to rest.
My big thing is with an air raid offense. I mean, Larry Fitzgerald's on the
100
back
years
end of his
old.
career where you don't have anyone else to go get the ball.
So my big problem is with the Cardinals, they invested a lot in Kyler Murray, obviously, by getting rid of Josh Rosen. I mean, Miami's brilliant for taking that trade, and all it cost them was, a second-round pick?
I mean, they're
And a
but,
fifth.
but the other thing is they're probably not going to play him next year either.
Who?
Rosen.
Yeah, they
They'll
will.
play him this year, but
Next year. No, I'm sorry.
So I posed this question. I sent it in the group text during the second round of the draft that the potential that this happens to Rosen again next year. If Miami doesn't do what they're supposed to and they end up getting the first round pick, there's the potential that they draft Tua.
I don't see Miami losing to the Bills twice, but
I do.
The Bills are awesome.
I don't know. I just
it's still the Bills.
I think that Josh Rosen's destined to be an NFL backup. Maybe Miami is that spot for him. Maybe it's somewhere else. I don't really feel bad for the kid. It's hard to feel bad for a guy who's still making more than I'll make in my entire lifetime. But,
You know what's funny? Like when he had time to throw the ball and was in the pocket, he was accurate.
well,
I mean, their offensive line was terrible.
one of the worst in the league last year.
He made bad decisions
as
when-
rookies often do.
but also when he was getting pressured.
Oh, yeah.
A lot of his terrible throws and bad interceptions is when he always had people in his face.
But
Always.
the thing is, that's probably the biggest jump from college to the NFL is you're not going to have ideal situations more often than not. So that's kind of where the quarterbacks need to separate themselves is what can they do when there's pressure in their face? What can they do on the run or when the play breaks down? I mean, every quarterback that's ever played, if they have enough time and a good pocket, are going to make pretty good throws more often than not.
So could it be one of those situational things where he ends up at a team where if he would have been drafted by somebody else, his career could have taken off and been a whole lot different?
Well, I think it all depends on fit and coaching and scheme. But With the Dolphins, he actually has a better chance now than he did with the Cardinals because they still have Kenyon Drake, they still have Kenny Stills. I think he can actually take over that job by week 3 because
very good offensive line.
Let's not forget that Ryan Fitzpatrick got benched in favor of Jameis Winston last
year. He looked
year.
like Jamarcus Russell the last picture I saw of him. He's about like 260 something.
Ryan Fitzpatrick.
Oh yeah,
he's huge. He's gotten big.
He's got like 9 kids, and he says he ate a lot of birthday cake over the offseason.
I mean,
I wouldn't doubt it. Him and Rivers could field
entire
football
11
team.
11.
Whole 52-man roster.
That'd be
filled
great.
by Rivers and Fitzpatrick.
I don't know about that.
All-Star weekend.
I think with Josh Rosen specifically, his entire career is going to be the what-if factor. If the Giants had not taken Barkley and just taken a quarterback, let's assume it was Rosen, I think he's always going to fall into that category of if he had gone to a better situation, how would his career panned out? But I think, honestly, his best days are probably behind him in college. I think that he's, like I said, a career backup. I think if he gets to the right situation, a New England or a Green Bay or something like that, where he's behind,
he always came off
an
as
elite
kind of like
level,
a head case
aloof.
too.
Yeah, he
So
doesn't
that's-
do himself any favors. I think he's very average.
I don't know about the head case thing that a lot of people talk about because I actually saw a clip of him playing in a celebrity softball game the other day in Arizona, and the entire stadium gave him a standing ovation.
That was Larry Fitzgerald's.
No, it was Rosen.
Yeah, it was a celebrity softball game. That's the reason. Yeah, he stayed in Arizona an extra day instead of flying to Miami just so that he could, hold true to his commitment to go play in the.
We have a special guest.
Yeah.
It's a 2-year-old.
Say hello, Mason.
Mason, spell your name.
Mason contributes for Sam this episode.
Yeah, Sam was unable to join us today, so Mason's filling in.
Mason's now throwing a tantrum, much like Sam does. Going back to the original point, which was just basically the selection of Kyler Murray. I think he's one of those guys. In 3 years, he's going to be out of the NFL. I just don't foresee anything that he has to offer. He's small. He's one of those guys that needs to run first, throw second. And as we've seen, that's not really a good formula in the NFL. Everybody's going to be as big or as strong as the strongest guy he saw in college. So you mentioned the Arizona's offensive line is bad. They drafted a ton of wide receivers, but they're all obviously unproven. Larry Fitzgerald isn't going to play forever. In fact, he's probably about ready to hang it up.
He should be done now.
Yeah. So defensively, they're average, if anything. They're going to cater the offense to him. Yes, Cliff Kingsbury came in to kind of be his mentor and work with him as he did in college. But I don't know. I think it's a waste of a pick, and I think Arizona's going to be right back where they are in a couple years.
I agree 100%. I don't think Kyler Murray is going to pan out.
I hope. All the power in the world to him. Like I don't wish for the kid to fail. It's just I think in today's NFL, his game's not going to correlate the way that teams want it.
You see that a lot too with that type of quarterback.
Right. Look at RG3.
Yeah.
He was phenomenal. And even as a rookie, he started to kind of take the league by storm. But what happens? You get one injury,
You're not the same.
Especially for a running quarterback, to get a knee injury like that, you don't recover fully ever, and you can hope to get kind of back to where you wanted to be. But guys like an Andrew Luck or an Aaron Rodgers, maybe back in a couple years ago, they were mobile quarterbacks, but they were throwing quarterbacks. Like they threw the ball first, and they just were able to move around a little bit to kind of give them some room and extend the play, so to speak. So you need an athletic quarterback. Case in point, look at Cam Newton. Like the kid was the number 1 overall pick from Carolina a few years back, and yeah, he's got some accolades under his belt, but the Panthers really haven't done anything under him.
In fact, they drafted
Will Greer.
Yeah, from West Virginia.
Yeah, which I doubt he'll see the field a whole lot.
No, but Cam Newton's now sitting there being like, how much longer am I going to be here? Considering they're looking for my replacement.
And to his credit, it's not his fault that the NFL has taken its toll on him physically. He's a big kid. He's 6'5", 200.
He doesn't get the same calls.
No,
that
which
other quarterbacks in the league.
But his style of play is just not conducive to the NFL anymore. They want to protect the quarterback, but it's a passing league, and they're never going to have unless he can throw for 300 yards consistently a game. He's replaceable.
It's also very different when everyone in the league runs a 4.5.
Right,
not just the one player on the other side.
And to think now, oops, I'm sorry. Think of all the physical beatings that Cam has taken. Now imagine that with Kyler Murray, who's 6 inches shorter than him and 100 pounds lighter. The poor kid's probably not going to make it to the bye week if they decide to play in week 1, which I assume they will.
I think he'll start week 1.
I mean, who else is
Cam
on the
Newton?
roster?
Yeah, he should,
I
right?
tell you who their backup
He's
is.
coming off the injury. I mean, I think Murray's going to start week 1.
Oh, Murray. Yeah,
hands down.
Murray has to. I can't name another quarterback on that roster.
I don't know, is Bradford still there?
No, they
No,
did not
released
resign him.
So
He never got picked up, and Mike
QB2
Lennon
is
gone.
TBD.
Yeah. David Johnson might have to throw some wildcat
God.
passes. I don't know.
So we had talked a little bit about what our favorite pick of the draft was and what our least favorite pick of the draft was. So
I'm very excited for this part.
So I think we're going to jump into this right now. I think we're going to see with the favorite picks and the least favorite picks, and we are going to start off with this one right here.
With the 15th pick in the 2019 NFL Draft, the Washington Redskins select Dwayne Haskins, quarterback, Ohio State.
So that one's going to go to John. John's favorite pick was Mr. Dwayne Haskins going to the Washington Redskins.
Yeah, I love this pick, and depending on who you ask, this guy could or should have been the number 1 overall pick based on pure talent. So I love the Dwayne Haskins pick for a couple of reasons. Number 1, I think he was the best quarterback in the draft, best, most complete quarterback. Number 2, I like the fact that he's going to his hometown team. You know, he grew up in the Washington area. Yeah, he played for Ohio State. That's a part of it. I'm not a huge homer in that regard, but I like the story of him going to Washington. I like that it's a need selection for them. You know, they didn't have to do anything, and they still got probably their biggest priority target. I know there was some ballyhoo from who actually made the decision. Was it Dan Snyder? Was it the front office? So regardless of who made the pick, I think it was the right one for the Redskins because, again, it addressed their biggest area of need. Alex Smith may never play another down in the NFL.
He
based
shouldn't.
on
Well, not for $90 million. I
yeah.
wouldn't.
Colt McCoy is officially QB1 as of prior to the draft, so you definitely can't hitch your wagons to him. I think Haskins is playing motivated. If you watched the draft, you saw his reactions he had an independent party instead of actually attending the draft, but he looks all sorts of, we'll just call it, upset that he was not selected. He probably realized he wasn't going number 1, but the biggest head scratcher was when the Giants passed on him.
Yeah.
At what was it, number 5?
Yeah.
6.
Was
number
it
6. So, boy.
You saw when they cut to the camera of him when they announced the
Yeah.
Giants
He
pick
just
that he kind of
giggled.
chuckled.
Yeah,
And
I appreciated that.
I think that is going to be beneficial for him because much like Baker not getting Rookie of the Year last year, I think it's going to have a gigantic chip on his shoulder. I think he's got everything to prove while he should have nothing to prove to anyone, but he's got a big arm. I think he's got that mobility. He's kind of the antithesis of Kyler Murray that we talked about earlier. I think if you want to design a quarterback that has the mobility and the arm, it's Dwayne Haskins.
The one thing about Haskins that I didn't like is, I mean, no one wants to get hit, but I feel like he bails out way too soon. If pressure's coming, he throws it away a lot quicker than he should have instead
That's
of trying to make a play.
Formula to a long career, though.
Yeah, but, I mean, you see guys who are able to move around in the pocket, step up, and make plays happen. I felt like even after he got hit once, he was more prone to being a lot antsier in the pocket instead of just standing his ground. He reminds me of the quarterback from Draft Day, the movie.
Oh, yeah.
How they talked about when Devontae Mack's like, yeah, watch him the next
Bo
play.
Callahan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He reminds me of
He's
like
fictitious.
Bo Callahan. And that's the only thing I didn't like about Haskins.
He reminds me of a winner, plain and simple. Like, I hate the Redskins. They're not on my list of teams that I enjoy at all, but I love the marriage of these two. Like I said, I think it's a kind of a perfect situation where the team needed a quarterback, the quarterback needed a team to believe in him. They clearly did. Yeah, the hometown part of it's cool. That's part of the great stories of sports. But I really just love the pick because I think he's going to be a kid that's really going to take the league by storm. We're kind of in that transitory period where your Breeze, Brady, Rodgers are kind of on the downswing of their career, if not kind of ready to call it quits. So you need younger guys like a Baker Mayfield, like a Carson Wentz, Jared Goff, Pat Mahomes, and a Dwayne Haskins. I'm going to throw his name out there. I think these are your next generation of superstar quarterbacks, and I'm really excited for him.
Offensive Rookie of the Year?
Not ready to say anything yet.
Yeah.
Let's kind of wait and see how things
Come on,
go.
yeah, you're known for your
If he
bold
starts-
predictions, man.
I will tell you this, that not only is he stepping into a great situation where he can contribute right away, but the Redskins actually made smart choices during the draft to help him out because
Agreed.
they got his teammate Terry McLaren from Ohio
They did.
State, and they also got Kelvin Harmon from NC State late. So he's going to walk into a place where he's going to have weapons that he's not going to have to try to figure out how to use Josh Dotson, which is great.
Right, absolutely.
The nice thing, too, is even when he was at Ohio State, they kind of geared the system around him.
Exactly.
That's good coaching.
Ohio State changed from being a run-first offense to being a pass-first offense under Haskins. And the NFL is obviously a pass-first league. So he got a lot of experience at Ohio State. I think it's going to help him immensely.
So they still have Peterson.
Yes.
They have Geis coming off of the knee injury.
Yep.
And then they drafted another running back who's coming off of a knee injury.
I don't remember who that was.
I can't think of his name off the top of my head, but I'm almost positive. Is it the guy from Stanford?
Bryce Love?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Must have been.
I think they drafted Bryce Love.
Because I know it wasn't Montgomery Singletary, it wasn't Miles Sanders.
I think they drafted Love.
I'm-
So they have two running back coming off of knee injuries, and they have
Adrian Peterson, who is 1,000 years
who's
old.
90. Bryce Love. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I mean the
112, wow.
the offense should be fine as long they should let him play day one and just sling it because he can do it. And he improved all season long in his last season at Ohio State. You know, just put him in there. I mean, what are you going to get out of Colt McCoy? Why even bother?
Yeah.
But I also forgot they have Case Keenum, but that doesn't do anything for anyone anyway.
I mean,
no.
Not really.
But you look at some of the moves they've made this year, you know, they brought in Landon Collins from the Giants, so you make your enemy weaker and you make yourself stronger. They have Josh Norman at cornerback. Their linebackers have always been pretty good. You know, they've got Ryan Kerrigan. They have that Jonathan Allen that they drafted a few years ago. I think that this team is on the rise.
I mean, you look at the East, too.
Oh, yeah. I mean,
The Giants
outside
are
of Philly, I don't
horrible.
think you've got any real
The
competition.
Cowboys are hit or miss. Philadelphia, it depends on how Wentz is going to play.
So
It depends if Wentz can stay healthy. That's
Yeah.
the biggest thing with him.
That's going to work. That's what
Especially
we'll see
now
this
with
year.
no Foles in the background to
yeah,
pick
it's
up the
back
slack.
But no, I'm kind of leaning toward Haskins being your rookie of the year. If you look at it, traditionally goes to a quarterback. I can't for any
Last year it
faith. True. I can't put any faith in Kyler Murray.
I can't
and
either.
Daniel Jones.
Who?
That whole situation's a mess. In
He probably
New
won't even
York.
play.
So Haskins
he won't
has
see
as
the
good a shot
field.
as
Oh, I
anybody.
doubt it.
too.
He won't see the field. Even if Eli's starting to struggle, I still don't think he's going to see the field.
No way. No,
But-
Eli's holding that franchise hostage.
Yeah. Yep. And like I listened to a lot of interviews with David Gettleman. He's the general manager of the Giants, and the guy is just stupid. Like, how is this guy in charge of running a professional franchise? It blows my mind.
Well, keep in mind that he's also in the #1 media capital of the world. So he's got the pressure of being an NFL GM is magnified because, you know, he's in New York.
But
So
his
the scrutiny's
reasoning
even harder.
his reasoning behind the pick. Someone asked him. I had the audio clip, but it's kind of long, and I don't want to make them listen to it. But they asked him when he fell in love with Daniel Jones, and he's like, "Well, I saw him play 3 series at the Senior Bowl, and from that moment on, I loved him." Are you kidding me?
12 plays?
3 series, and you draft him as your future franchise quarterback.
At
And
6.
not only that, and you hate to pigeonhole guys for where they went to school because obviously for every big school bust, you've got a Carson Wentz coming out of kind of nowhere. But a Duke quarterback isn't exactly going to set the world on fire.
I will play him this. I have some audio of Todd McShay talking about the draft pick, and when we talked about this segment being our favorite draft pick and our least favorite draft pick. I'm just going to jump straight into my least favorite draft pick since we're talking about it. Is Daniel Jones.
Go for it.
Go for it.
So,
How surprised were you that the New York Giants went Daniel Jones at number 6?
I wouldn't say surprised as much as disappointed for Giants fans. I mean, if you watch the tape, this guy, listen, I've sat in a room with him. I've sat with David Cutcliffe, and he's explained how much he loves him, how smart he is, and he's a good guy. His teammates love him. He's competitive. He is a runner. He can run. But I see a backup quarterback in the NFL. And when you look at him, he's slow to process at times, inconsistent decision maker, He is, if we did statistics on all these quarterbacks, second to last of all the quarterbacks, talking about 15 draftable quarterbacks this year, second to last in terms of under pressure, which is the most important thing to evaluate with quarterbacks from college to the NFL. His third
Haskins.
He was first or second in all, first, second, or third in every single one of these.
Haskins was first, second, or third in every category.
Yes. Yeah.
Got it.
Yep.
So there you go.
Whoops.
He was last in deep ball accuracy, third to last in inside the pocket, second to last in the deep out throw. I mean, I don't see what they see. So let's say you philosophically, I get it. If you think he's going to be that kind of quarterback, yeah, sure, you take him at 6. But you also then have to manage the draft. That's the thing that Oakland has never done well with John Gruden, and John Gruden has never done well in his career. And that's why I thought they brought in Mike Mayock as GM is to be the rudder, to understand, all right, I know, John, you love Cleveland Farrell. That's great. But we can get him at 17, 18. Let's try to move back, or let's get a player of more value. For the Giants to pass up on Ed Oliver, defensive tackle, to pass up on Devin Bush, who's going to be a star linebacker for your Steelers, to pass up on T.J. Hawkinson, the tight end. I mean, the list goes on and on of players that they could have.
I'm not taking a tight end at 6 in the NFL draft.
Yeah, but
you can trade down and acquire assets.
I do want to interject because I spent a lot of time this winter/spring watching tape of players in college to be able to evaluate him for all the mock drafts I did, and I did watch Daniel Jones's film, and he doesn't have a cannon for an arm. He's not a freak athlete. He has a little bit of mobility, and he's not terribly accurate. So again,
so is Eli.
I mock drafted him as a potential 15 pick just because the position is overvalued. Not because of his talent.
They had him. They had another pick at 17. The Browns pick.
They did, and they could have very well probably.
There's no chance that anyone would have taken him before 17.
I doubt it.
There's no way.
No.
I mean, McShay says it right there. And these guys make a career out of this, out of the mock drafts and whatnot. So they're usually overly lovey with these prospects because they want to make themselves look better. Now, this could very easily be a case of sour grapes where they had him mocked later and they went higher than he should have, so they're going to kind of crap all over the pick. But for him to come out and say that he values him as a backup quarterback in the NFL,
it's a little rude.
I mean, that's pretty damning. So,
I mean, you value a backup quarterback as a guy that lost 58-7 to Wake Forest. That doesn't
read the rest of the stats off of that as well.
58-7 to Wake Forest in his final regular season game. 2 touchdowns and 9 interceptions to a Virginia team.
I think that's just a case of circumstance.
And 1 interception, no touchdowns, and a QB rating of 19 in a loss to a 1-11 Baylor.
Very not good.
Like, how do you look at the stats in the record?
I mean, obviously you can't determine it by random instances, but you're going to find a lot more bad than you will standout performances.
Like, if you take a layman with football, someone who doesn't really watch the game, and they understand it, but they don't really watch it a whole lot.
Brian Satina.
Casual fan.
Like Brian Satina. Name drop, Brian Satina. Anyways.
Well, he's going to be so mad when he gets on this one day. And we name drop him.
No, he says he actually listens to the show.
Good.
He also says he has unlimited PTO.
Okay, anyways. Inside joke, guys. If you put them down and you say, I want you to watch this guy play, and I want you to watch Dwayne Haskins play, when it's all said and done, who do you think they're going to go after? Just the football layman.
If you put them sit next to each other, you're going to pick Dwayne Haskins.
Why is that, Nick?
Because he
looks
bigger.
Like
he looks like an NFL player.
Yeah.
Jones looks like the guy you would cast to play Eli Manning in a biopic about Peyton Manning.
That is the whole reason why they probably picked him, was because of the Manning family politics.
And I'm sorry,
he's got a relation to them.
Yeah, the coming up through their camp and dealing with both Manning brothers, I'm sure that had a big factor.
I don't see Eli Manning as the mentoring type.
I don't either. Not at all.
This kid is not going to get any type of mentoring from Eli Manning. He's going to sit there and he's going to have to try to learn what he can on his own. But I have a hard time seeing Eli Manning being like, hey, come here, let me show you this. Or, hey, you're doing this wrong. I don't see it from Eli.
Right. So is Jones Rosen next year?
Potentially.
See, here's the thing, and this is kind of where I think Gettleman dropped the ball. you have a good amount of your fan base that is still angry with you over taking Barkley last year instead of a Sam Darnold or a Josh Allen.
How about trading Odell?
Yeah, and losing your best offensive player that you've had for the past few years.
In the same offseason.
So I get it. You almost had to take a quarterback. It was kind of a damned if you do, damned if you don't situation for him. But man, how do you justify go out in front of the media? And I mean, it's one thing to actually draft Jones, but the thing that blows my mind is the justification he's giving and kind of the narrative that he's weaving about.
Well, he can't walk it back.
No, he absolutely can't. But I mean, hey, this was the number one guy on our board. Boom. Next question.
I do have other audio if you guys want to listen to this as well. It was during his press conference. Sal Palantonio kind of interjects.
Let's do it.
This is nuts.
Played multiple more seasons. This one plus 1, 2, whatever. Does this end that possibility here because you're one?
The roaring is not part of the clip.
Absolutely not.
Okay, so stop it right there. So he is admitting failure already. So they're asking if Eli's going to play another few years, on all this situation, like a Brett Favre and Aaron Rodgers situation. Eli's not going to play 3 more years. Eli shouldn't have been playing the last 3 years. So you're already setting this poor kid up to fail because you're comparing him to an Aaron Rodgers who had the benefit of sitting behind one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time, give him a chance to kind of like. And granted, Brett was not exactly the
Eli Manning is
either.
a 2-time Super Bowl champion.
Congratulations!
Thank
you to
David
Mario
Tyree.
Manningham, David Tyree, Plaxico Burress, and Michael Strahan.
And the Patriots falling apart. In the fourth quarter.
Eli didn't exactly win those Super Bowls so much as he was invited to participate on the offense. But I don't know.
It gets better.
Somebody had to throw that ball 4 feet above
It gets
Tyree's
better.
head.
Wait till Sal Palantonio jumps in here.
Maybe we're going to be the Green Bay model, Kim.
No.
Where Rodgers sat for 3 years. Who knows?
Rodgers sat for 3 years and wasn't drafted in the first round.
It's one of those deals where
Not at
it
pick
doesn't
6.
make a difference what position it is. You can never have too many good players at one position. You can never have too many good players.
This guy.
Should I say that you drafted a quarterback number 6 and he might sit for 3 years?
Who knows? I may go out there in my car and get hit.
Like
You don't know, Sal. Okay?
It's
you
so
don't
ridiculous.
know. We drafted a quarterback that we believe is a franchise quarterback.
But
that you're not willing to start.
That's really
for 3
the
years.
end, the long and the shot of it. We feel he's a franchise kid.
Eli can play for 3 more years. Wouldn't you take somebody at number 6 to help Eli do that?
It's the same.
Shout out Sal Palantonio asking those
It's the
hard
same
questions.
conversation. It's the same question that Kim asked me. Why didn't you wait to 17? It's really the same question. Okay, we don't know. Life's too short.
What?
You
Life
don't
is
know
shot now.
how this is going
For
to work.
him.
He's going to get shot.
So again, it's.
I mean, did you see the reaction at MetLife when they made the pick?
Oh, it's madness.
Tackles when they already
It was a constant.
That is why you're doing that.
You should see Pat Shermer's face.
I've seen the
this.
still images. He wants to go back to Cleveland.
I mean, he looks like a guy who's coaching
The Giants. So he sounds like he's dumbfounded with his answers. Gettleman, we're talking about. And again, if you make the pick and you're 100% on it, just come out and say like, "Hey, this is our guy. We didn't think he was going to be there at 17. He plays a premium position. We're going to draft him. We're going to hitch our wagon to him, and this is what it is." But for him to sit there and say things like, "Oh, I don't know. I might get hit by a car when I walk outside."
So there's
what confidence are you putting in this kid at all?
Might get beaten in the head with a beer
There's a
bottle.
story going around that he's actually working for the New England Patriots, and his sole purpose is to destroy the New York Giants.
I mean,
if that's the plan, he's doing it to a T.
It's too short.
He's doing very well.
he has a very.
You know who I feel worst about in this entire situation is poor Saquon Barkley. This kid, did he deserve to be drafted number 2 overall? Absolutely. Kid's a physical stud. Like, he's awesome. Rookie of the year last year. Probably should not have been picked at that point by the Giants because they needed a quarterback so badly. He's now on track to have an Adrian Peterson type of career where he's amazing for 5-6 years and nothing happens as a result.
On a really, really bad team.
On a terrible team. That
Barry
does
Sanders.
nothing.
What
Barry
drives me nuts
Sanders.
too with this pick is
Jerome Harrison.
the quarterback class that's coming out next year and potentially the following year.
Oh, the following year's
is so much better.
2021 is going to
if-
be insane.
And if your intent is for this kid to sit, why? Why not wait and invest in
and take
a better
Trevor
quarterback?
Lawrence in 2021 and just let him go crazy.
I mean, because if you keep Eli, and chances are that you're going to be up there in the draft boards.
Yeah, I mean, especially when you're trading away all your offensive threats. I mean, who's got Evan Ingram and Sterling Shepard, and that's about it outside of Barkley. So I don't know. I just think it was a weird pick. I get why he was picked. My biggest thing is the rationale behind it.
Yeah,
and just
it drove me nuts.
no
I
clue what they're
watched
doing.
I watched probably 40 minutes of press conferences the other night, just listening to this guy talk and his rationale behind the pick. And I get it. You made the pick. You're gonna piggyback, stand behind it, and you're not gonna question.
But he's not. That's the thing. He's using this bogus rationale of you never know what's going to happen.
Yeah,
or
but
whatever.
he's still
come out and
he's
say it.
still defending his pick.
Yeah, he's
He needs to
defending
be
it. He's just not
more
doing it well.
All you got to
Forceful
do.
about it.
This was our guy. We took him.
All right, so enough talk about the Giants and Gettleman in that pick.
We could do a whole segment on Joseph.
who wants to go with their favorite pick?
Do you want to go back to a favorite, or do you want me to just talk about my least favorite? Are we doing those?
It doesn't matter. Yeah, go ahead. You can jump into your least
All right,
favorite.
so,
Take it away.
My least favorite pick actually it stems from a couple things. So the Green Bay Packers actually traded up in the draft from number 30 to number 21 to get safety Darnell Savage out of Maryland. In doing so, they traded away both of their fourth-round picks. If my memory serves me correctly, Savage was the first defensive back taken off the board. The justification of the Packers is he wasn't going to be there at 30. Well, that's fine if you think that that's the number one defensive back in this entire draft class.
I think he was ranked the highest rated safety in the draft class.
Oh, that's great. Are the Packers a safety away from winning the Super Bowl?
No.
Or do they have absolutely nothing on offense
Well, they took
or
a-
defense?
they took an
Their
injured player with
offensive
their first
line's
pick.
terrible as well.
So at this point, I think maybe two tackles had gone, maybe a handful of interior. There were plenty of offensive weapons. There were plenty of defensive weapons. There were plenty of guys that you could have gotten at 30 and not had to forfeit 2 fourth-round picks to move up 9 spots to get a safety.
The fact
I'm not
that
trying to bastardize the safety position, but it's not a cornerback. It's not a pass rusher. It's not a pass protector, and it's not a playmaker on offense.
This year
it's
was
not a premium position.
This year was a big man draft, and we all saw
Absolutely.
that. The fact that no corners, period. We had, 2 corners go in the first round?
One that the Giants took at, 30?
Yeah,
That's-
it was DeAndre
that's
Baker.
insane.
Yeah. So I just Green Bay, to me, if I'm Aaron Rodgers, I'm pretty upset because there is so much that team could have done to help him that they really didn't do.
To add on to that, the entire draft, the Packers did not take a wide receiver.
Name a starting wide receiver on the Packers right now besides Devontae Adams.
Aquarius St. Brown.
Okay, name a real one.
Equinemius.
Marquez Valdez-Scantling.
Okay, fine.
I only know that because of Fantasy
And
Life.
I only know St. Brown because he's a Notre Dame guy.
Yeah.
This kind of
His
parlays.
name's Equinemius, you got to remember that.
Equinemius.
But my point is, they had a chance, and I mean, the Packers' window is probably closing quickly in terms of repeating their Super Bowl success, if it hasn't slammed shut already.
I think it's just barely open to crack.
Right. So, I
Barely,
mean, it's barely
barely.
letting it breeze in. Ha.
I totally agree.
But,
Especially with the Bears coming up. And
yeah, I mean,
wrecking
look at
that
their own
division.
division. Like, the Vikings are still probably up there in terms of they're a couple players away from getting back on top to where they
I
were.
think the Bears are
are
gonna be really good.
greatly improved. Even Detroit, they're not the scrubs they used to be.
Stafford's
so,
not a slouch. at all.
Exactly. He's just never had anybody to throw to outside of Megatron. But you look at the Packers, and they just, man, it was a head scratcher. Like, they need to be in a situation where they're trading back to acquire picks to take these guys, and they're essentially blowing the middle
Or
rounds.
at least make a value pick.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think it finalized with 15 defensive linemen or linebackers were taken in the first round.
Somewhere
What does
around
that
there.
tell you is the
100%.
talent of the draft is?
Yep.
Not in the back end. Plus you
No,
had
it's that front seven
plus
draft.
you had
totally
other
front seven.
corners.
What, one DB?
There
Two DBs?
There was
and
one corner taken.
One corner, two
and
safeties,
in the first round. Not to mention there was one wide receiver taken by the Patriots at number 32. So, with the glaring offensive needs that they have, they could have drafted a tackle, they could have drafted interior offensive line. There was only one receiver taken in the first round by the Patriots at 32. I like Savage as a player. I just don't know that he's valued that high for a team that has so many needs. Like, does a safety beat Detroit? Does a safety beat Chicago? Does a safety beat Minnesota? I don't think so. I think that this team has so many holes and needs so much that that pick just didn't make any sense to me at the time. Especially giving up, again, the fourth round is not exactly a throwaway round. That's where a lot of your depth guys and a lot of your kind of hidden gems come from, is the fourth and fifth rounds. To forfeit those, to trade up to get a guy at a position that's not really valued as highly in the NFL as it has been, it's weird to me.
Andy, anything?
He's happy because the Vikings are.
I'm actually unhappy about it
Crap all
because
over.
that means Darnell Savage is now in the division, and that upsets me. But I'll actually fill in later because I do have a player from the Packers that that got drafted that I did not like.
And that should tell you everything you need to know. That literally half of the four of us picked somebody from the Packers draft. The first round. This is your money round.
All right. So now we're going to head on to Nick's pick. So Nick's favorite pick of the draft.
With the 20th pick in the 2019 NFL Draft, the Denver Broncos select Noah Fant, tight end, Iowa.
All right. There you go. Noah Fant, tight end, Iowa. Go ahead, Nick.
I absolutely love Noah Fant. He was my favorite tight end in the entire draft. I cannot believe that he was available at 20 for Denver to take. I love the pick. You have a guy, a veteran in Flacco, that constantly hits tight ends. They're a great check down for him. Personally, I also love Drew Lock. So the fact that he's going to have that safety net when he eventually starts is phenomenal for him. And that's the gist of my
I read
Noah Fant
a
rep.
statistic the other day. Teams that Joe Flacco has been a part of have drafted 9 tight ends.
I mean, Baltimore took a tight end every year.
Yeah, so to your point, it lends credence to the fact that he certainly favors the tight end. I mean, you look at the years that he was in Baltimore. I believe he got to play with Heap toward the end of his career.
Before he blew his back out.
Right, and then you had I just lost his name. The guy who had the Dennis Pitta. With his before he had his hip issues. Ed Dixon. They drafted that kid Max Williams. So he's had a lot of good tight ends to play with. Noah Fant's obviously going to be.
I think Fant is he is that Gronk mold too. He's a fantastic blocker. He's a big tight end. He can run that. He has great route running skills. He can go over the middle. He's not afraid to take the hit.
He was the second tight end taken from Iowa, right?
Yeah,
correct.
Second tight end taken, both from the same class. Yeah.
I'm indifferent to it, but I do like the player. I believe that he is a wide receiver masquerading as a tight end, so I think they're going to get a lot of value out of him moving him around, not just playing off the tackle in the box. So I think it was a great pick. I agree.
I have no negative things to say about Mr. Fant. I wish I hate.
How
the
can you have
Broncos,
negative
but-
things to say about a guy that waves to sick kids in a
No, I
hospital
said
during
I
a
don't
game?
have any negative.
I
things to
love
say
that
about
Iowa. That whole thing that they do there.
I
That
think
is
it's
so
a really
cool.
good program. If I cared at all about college football, that'd probably be high on my list of teams to cheer for. But love the player, hate the situation, only because I don't like Denver. So it was a tremendous pick by the organization, but I just do not like the Broncos. So.
At 20, it's
a no-brainer.
It's astounding that he was even available.
Who's your least favorite?
The Raiders.
Just
The
Raiders
Raiders
in
in
general. The Raiders in general.
At number 4, taking Cleanan is just it's a right position, wrong player argument. You a defensive end who you didn't need Khalil Mack because you could get a defensive end everywhere, and you took the one at 4 that you could have gotten at
24.
30.
So I hate Mike Mayock. I don't like him at all.
We had this discussion that we think he's
a puppet.
He's trying to
not even a
outsmart
puppet.
the league.
He's trying to outthink everybody by
Correct.
making himself
So,
seem smarter than he actually is.
He called Notre Dame football for a couple years, and it made me want to mute my television because
I can agree with that.
The way he talks about players, he has such a large ego that he wants to be that guy to be like, ooh, this is the guy that I drafted that nobody else thought of.
Mm-hmm.
And it drives me nuts. And that's what his picks reminded me of was the guy who's like, I'm smarter than you. I can look and find guys that you can't find. Your scouting department doesn't know what they're doing.
I mean, he didn't have a scouting department. He sent them all home. So
My only thing with that whole statement is I wonder how much of it actually was Mayock and how much of it was John Gruden's influence.
I don't think Mayock's going to get pressured by Gruden.
I don't either.
I do.
I don't.
I think that Mayock will acquiesce a lot of power to Gruden. I think Gruden running that ship. I personally believe that Mike Mayock was brought in to do more scouting, to kind of like formulate the board, but then Gruden's going to do whatever.
I mean, there's a rumor that the Raiders are going to be Hard Knocks this year, which would be absolutely phenomenal because I would love to see how this turns out.
I'm all for that
because I just put a camera in that room. Gruden's crazy enough on his own. Put them both in that room together,
and you have two guys who were TV personalities.
Oh yeah.
Who
John Gruden?
Yeah, who they're people. While the HBO is be like, people are going to want to tune in and see this.
I would absolutely tune in for the Oakland Raiders on Hard Knocks.
You know what's funny? Like, I never got into the Hard Knocks until the Browns did it last year, and I regret not watching it every year prior.
Oh, go back to the Jets season. That was a fantastic one.
The Bengals a couple years. Were
yeah, good. But the whole Darrelle Revis saga was just tremendous.
God, I can't stand him
it's,
either.
It's very quality.
Sounds like you're going to be disappointed.
Yeah, I don't like it at all.
What if, I mean, there's rumors going around that the Raiders were waiting for the phone to ring to make a deal for number 4.
I'm sure it was.
I do believe that.
And apparently no one was calling.
Also
which
believe
I find,
that.
I mean, I don't know if I believe
but nobody called for the Jets either at number 3, and I thought for sure that'd be a spot where New York was looking to move back in the draft. Now, to your point about Cleveland Farrell, I love the other 2 picks that the Raiders made. I love the Josh Jacobs pick at 24, and I love the John Abram pick at 27.
The Abram pick, I'll give you. The Josh Jacobs pick,
the Abram pick was my favorite. The Raiders made on day 1.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and I don't want to sound like a hypocrite because they drafted a safety, and I just trashed Green Bay for doing the exact same thing. But
I drafted him at 27.
They let the draft come to them. They didn't have to do all these moving and shaking.
On that point, I was surprised by, you heard a lot of talk that this team was going to move up and this team was going to move up and they wanted this guy and they wanted this guy.
Nothing happened.
And everyone stayed put and got the guy they wanted.
For the most part,
except Pittsburgh, who moved up for the first time in.
But they got the guy they wanted.
I mean, they never do that. They're notoriously known for staying put or trading back. They never move up to get a guy. They let the draft come to them.
They are not aggressive.
But I was surprised by, like Haskins. There was a ton of rumors that, the Redskins wanted to move up, potentially trade up to draft Haskins, and they stayed
10.
put and they got him. And it felt like you heard a lot of teams talk about, we thought about trading up and we just let the draft come to us, and they got the guy they wanted.
And I think that there's a lot of credo to that, and I think that's part of the reason why I don't necessarily hate the pick that the Raiders made. To your point, right position, wrong player, sure, but it's hard to argue against one of those Clemson pass rushers.
Yeah.
They
3 out of the front 4 went in the first round.
And I think obviously in a couple years we'll kind of learn more about it, but I don't hate the pick. Could they have gotten him later? Probably.
I don't. Yeah, that's my biggest issue with the pick. I don't think at number 4 that was the pick to make.
Well, I fully believe that if the Jets hadn't taken Quinnen Williams at number 3, that would have been the Raiders' guy. So you can make the argument maybe Ned Oliver makes more sense, or even
Josh
Christian
Allen?
Wilkins, somebody else in that position,
A different defensive end.
But I don't think it's as egregious as some of the other ones we've talked about.
Well, from there we'll move into Andy's pick, and you had mentioned this guy just a couple seconds ago.
With the 9th pick in the 2019 NFL Draft, the Buffalo Bills select Ed Oliver, defensive tackle, Houston.
So, yeah, I was actually very concerned about the Buffalo Bills going into the first round because I thought they might do something idiotic.
Buffalo Bills-like?
Which they didn't, thank goodness. But to get Ed Oliver at 9 is astounding to me. He's going to fit right in for the retired Kyle Williams immediately. He's a player that you watch his college tape, and it's just so impressive how he gets double-teamed and triple-teamed all the time, even at a small school like Houston. And I think it's just phenomenal how he fell all the way to another round. Like you guys talked about, just letting the board come to you. That's a gift for the Giants and Detroit Lions to pass on Ed Oliver, who could be the next Aaron Donald, which a lot of scouts in the earlier months leading up to the draft, February and March, were saying that that's a huge possible potential outcome for this guy.
You look at the value, and you want to. That's kind of like the big thing with the draft is you want to draft best player available, or you want to make sure you get adequate value and whatnot. And I think the Buffalo Bills, maybe more than any other team in the first round, kind of got a steal, especially where a lot of people had considered he was going to go or speculated where he was going to go. Buffalo, I saw a lot of things where Buffalo went offense. A lot of mocks where they took
me included,
either a tight end or a tackle. But to get Ed Oliver, like you mentioned at number 9, when teams that were needy at the position.
I'm surprised Tampa Bay passed on him.
Detroit, I mean, I get it. You need offensive playmakers, but man, you lose Ziggy Ansah. You have nobody up front that really can do a whole heck of a lot to put pressure on the upstart Bears. Now, and you don't forget Aaron Rodgers in that division, and the Vikings are always a quality team. You know, it's just it's crazy to think that, again, to your point, Buffalo could just sit back, kind of let the draft happen, and nab arguably a top 3 player at number 9.
Yeah, he was in my top 3 when I started scouting prospects back in late October. Like, it was Nick Bosa, Quinnen Williams, and then Ed Oliver. And a lot of people were saying he could potentially be the first round or the number 1 overall pick back before the college football season even started. So there was been eyes on him. He's going to be a generational talent. He's going to fit well in Buffalo. I'm very excited to see the Bills play this year.
And, you know, the Bills, I think, unceremoniously get crapped on a lot because they've been through a lot.
A lot of bad luck.
I'll tell you what, as a Browns fan, if there's one team in the NFL that I would legitimately cheer for to succeed outside of my own Browns, it's got to be Buffalo. Like, it's just one of those blue-collar, hard-nosed towns.
It is Cleveland.
They
just
live,
in New York.
breathe, and die with the Bills. There's nothing else to do in Buffalo except for eat wings, play in the snow, and watch the Bills. The fans are absolute lunatics. You know how many videos you've seen of like diving through tables or jumping off roofs? So
Bills Mafia.
It's cool to see. You know, I hope that this is the start of something for them to turn around. It's really cool to see teams that have historically been kind of toward the bottom of the league start to creep their way back up.
And I know we talked about Miami not really doing much, and we don't have high expectations for them. And we talked last week about if the division opens up with the Patriots going down, we think the Jets are going to move in. But I think the Bills make a strong argument to move in and take over that division too, the way they've been building that team.
All right, Andy.
So the pick I like the least, limiting myself to the first round. As a Vikings fan, I love it because it's a dumb pick. As just a fan of the game, I don't understand it. But the Packers took Rashawn Gary with the 12th overall pick, the defensive end out of Michigan.
The defensive end out of Michigan.
I don't get it. You signed 2 edge rushers in the offseason, veteran players, and then you use your first round pick on Rashawn Gary, whose tape is just boring. Just watching him play, you just don't. He's got no moves, no swim attacks, no bend. He just tries to bull rush over everybody. I watched his tape against Notre Dame, and he just disappears. You don't get to see anything exciting out of him.
That was a fun game to watch.
So going up
for
against
Notre Dame fans, it was not for Michigan.
Going up against top tier talent like that, and I understand he's a workout warrior, and you're probably going to have to move him inside to play defensive tackle. And it just doesn't make any sense to me when you still have guys like Brian Burns on the board, who's a very bendy edge rusher, who probably would have been much better to complement those veteran players. And then you have Montez Sweat still on the board, and you take Rashawn Gary. Like, I understand he killed the combine, and he's got great numbers for his size. But from a production standpoint, it just makes no sense at all.
Yeah, and, you know, going back to what I said about the Packers taking Savage in the first round, what a strange draft approach that the Packers took.
It's very weird.
You know,
you can tell the Mike McCarthy era is over.
Yeah, and correct me if I'm wrong, they are moving to a 4-3 now after abandoning their traditional 3-4. So you do need pieces to put that together.
I would have rather had Burns too.
Exactly.
Oh, absolutely.
It's very similar to your situation with the Raiders, where it's probably the right position but the wrong guy. It's a head scratcher. If I were a Packers fan, I wouldn't know exactly how to feel right now because they really bungled the first round. I think there was a lot of players on the board that they could have gone, whether it's offensive or defensive, and they took players. Yeah, they're gonna. I mean, in the case of Savage, he might be pretty good, but I don't know.
And it's not like you're gonna have free agency money to spend with that monster Rodgers contract.
Yeah, so. It's maybe you're hoping that that extra 5th year you can get out of them is gonna pay off in your favor, but yeah, very questionable pick on Gary as well.
Wow.
And the Barges come in.
Who scored?
All right, so that's going to do it for our football talk. Before we get into Andy's on the record segment, we want to talk briefly about something that happened. It was last week or the week before. Bryce Harper got thrown out of the game. We watched the video a little bit ago. The pitch didn't look
it was a strike.
Like it was a ball. He argued balls and strikes, ended up getting tossed. The pitcher was it Jake Arrieta? Ended up talking after the game with the press, saying how they need Bryce Harper to keep his cool. They were calling bad pitches for both sides. and a topic got brought up that I wanted to talk about just briefly. I thought it was kind of intriguing about having balls and strikes being automatically called during the game. So if you watch on TV, ESPN does it. They do the strike zone thing where they got the white square up on home plate. Pitch goes in. You can tell if it's a ball or strike. They've got the technology nowadays to where, I mean, you can
put a sensor in the plate, and if the ball goes over it.
Yeah, that would be a little more difficult with, high and low. But, I mean, how hard would it be for someone to be sitting in front of the TV, basically, and being a strike and just communicating it to the umpire's ear? So I know it was brought up. Want to hear your guys' thoughts. See what you think about having balls and strikes being automatically called in Major League Baseball.
Hate it.
It's terrible.
Also hate it.
Terrible idea. So if you follow baseball even casually, you'll
For
notice.
The last 100 years.
Yeah, I mean the strike zone has evolved. Like I remember my dad will always, whenever we watch games, he will always inevitably in every game he will say, "I remember when that ball around the letters on the jersey was a strike." Like the high strike is virtually gone. So the game evolves in every facet. That the strike zone is not protected by some magical law or whatever. And
so why can't the game evolve into this?
Because it doesn't need to. People appreciate the history of baseball and the sanctity of the game. Why would you take that away by removing the most important human element that the game is? Very, very rarely is there an egregious miss on a ball or a strike. There's some 50-50, sure, but very rarely you're going to see a ball that's 2 feet outside and somebody calls it a strike.
Yeah, but it's not that these batters are so good at the plate where they can tell if the ball is an inch and an inch and a half off the plate, and they know if it's a ball or a strike.
Swing at it.
Yeah. So
yeah, but if it's outside, how do you know what that every umpire has a different strike zone.
There you go.
Which you
yes, but why would you not?
A good thing
because that's what makes baseball so special.
It's malleable.
Is baseball special?
Great American pastime.
It is, yeah. I think it was Roger Clemens in one of his many kind of behind the scenes interviews. He remembered that he had a file card in his locker for every umpire that he ever faced that had their strike zones, their tendencies, all this different stuff. So it was an element of gamesmanship on the part of the pitcher to be like, okay, John White is the umpire behind the plate tonight. I know that he's very generous on the inside corner, whereas on the outside corner he's very stringent. Or you got Tom Jones, who is the opposite.
Not
yeah,
unusual
name out there.
love
But you know what I'm saying? Like, that's the fun part of baseball. Like, if you catch the ball or the ball hits the ground, that's pretty cut and dry. The strike zone, I think, needs to be protected because it gives the home plate umpire all the authority in the game, which he should have. 9 times out of 10, the crew chief on an umpiring crew is the home plate umpire.
I hate when umpires make the game about themselves.
I don't
It
think
is
they
very
do,
unfortunate when they do. It happens rarely.
It does
I
happen.
mean, you have your bad ones like Angel Hernandez. He's just a terrible umpire. I've never liked him. There was another guy whose name escapes me at the moment, but
probably Tom Jones.
Speaking from experience, not a lot of experience. I pitched in high school and I was a pitching coach for 2 years, which that's not great in terms of resume. It's like, who cares? But whenever I was on the mound, it was always, you're competing with another human being to make sure that you got your pitch called a strike. I don't want to have to compete against a computer that is going to tell me that this centimeter,
a quarter of a millimeter difference,
that I'm off the plate is not a strike. That would absolutely drive me bananas.
But it would be accurate.
I don't care.
You would have the same strike zone for every single time. So you know that if you throw it over this part of the plate,
right,
it's going to get called. No matter if the umpire likes the outside corner or likes the inside corner.
But you're giving all the advantage to the hitter.
I mean, I think you're just going to have hitters that are just going to stand there and watch for 8 pitches.
Yeah.
Because if it's off that millimeter and it's a ball, why would you swing?
There's going to be a very low incentive to chase pitches. Not that people chase pitches intentionally,
but for me
to throw a 3-2 slider out of the zone, hoping he chases it, it's just going to get him a walk because he knows he doesn't have to swing at it.
Yeah, but that's the same case now. If you're going to throw a ball for him to chase, you're not intending to throw it over the strike zone anyway.
But with a human element behind the plate, there's more of a.
I'm just playing devil's advocate here.
No, I see what you're saying. But in order to defend what I think they need to keep doing, and that's avoid bringing Skynet into the situation, would be
the eagle eye.
The eagle eye.
I think it's as a player that caught for a decade, I can take a pitch that's 3 inches off the outside corner and make it a strike.
True.
And that's part of the game.
Framing is an art.
I know how to do it, and I was taught how to do it, and I was good at it. So
no, you weren't.
Don't tell me that I can't pull a ball and make it look like a strike. I can do it.
That's part of
good catchers know how to do that, and they can work with that.
Yeah, that's part of the added value to that position.
So you're taking away that position, you're taking away pitching, you're taking
it was something that I saw, thought I'd bring it up, thought I'd make a good talking point.
I think because I think it was our first episode we did this, we talked about the pass interference rules in the NFL, whether they should be reviewable. I liken this to that in that it's over scrutiny of rules that are just, I mean, they've been around forever, but they're just now coming to head, or they're the hot topic of the week because of a certain situation.
I mean, it was a big name too.
But let's look at the case
if
here.
If it was someone else other than Bryce Harper, and then the fact that the pitcher came out and his comments were that I think it was a 2-0 game. It was in the fourth inning. Yeah. That they needed Bryce Harper to be in the game.
Well, then he shouldn't have lost his cool.
And that's what the pitcher was talking about,
right?
And it had just been brought up on another talk show or something along those lines, and I thought it'd be interesting.
And think about it from an officiating standpoint too. I know you're supposed to be an impartial referee, but if you irk me or irritate me,
the likelihood is you're going to remember that.
My human nature is that I'm going to hold that little chip against you.
Which I mean.
Then, I know I shouldn't.
But then having it the other way where it was automatically called would take that away.
Then you don't need me behind the plate.
You wouldn't have the interference
I call the guy
from
out,
the umpire.
But eventually me calling the guy out would be taken over by the computer too.
Let's not forget that ejections and arguments are also a big part of the game too.
Possibly the best part of the game.
Ladies and gentlemen, let's get ready to rumble!
All right, here we go.
Time to box.
That's the best part of the...
It's time, isn't it?
I think we're avoiding copyright laws.
Yeah, I think I'm allowed 6 seconds without getting in trouble. I don't know if that's for sure.
I guess we're gonna test that theory,
right?
Whatever.
We'll find out when you get that cease and desist letter from Michael Buffer.
Monetize us, YouTube.
That's gonna take us right into our favorite segment of the day. Andy's on the record. Take it away, Andy.
Oh my gosh, let's do it.
We're so screwed.
So we're gonna So the first time we did this, I asked you to love or hate something. The second time, I asked you to buy or sell something. This time, I just want your hot take.
Buy some love and sell some hate.
I'm gonna give you a topic, and I want you to give me a take and defend it. All right.
Can are the other two or three people responsible for trying to destroy that take?
No.
Attack, defend,
damn
it.
No, absolutely not. You don't have to attack. You don't have to destroy. You don't have to defend.
But we can.
You can do whatever your heart desires.
Okay.
So, I think for the first person I'm going to pick on, no, because you said something, John, it's going to be you.
Yes, queen.
All right, John.
Oh God, don't do that.
It started at 34. It ended at 35. It started with a hand gesture, ended with that hand being broken. Lasted 364 days.
I know what it is.
What am I talking about?
What?
I know what it is.
It's a riddle.
I know what it is.
Read one more time. So it started with 34.
Started at 34. Ended at 35. Started with a hand gesture. Ended with that hand being broken. It lasted 364 days. Ryan, what is it?
Ronda Rousey's title run.
That's right.
Okay.
Yeah. Not necessarily her title run, but her time in ring active with the WWE.
Terrible.
So, John, what began as a crossover curiosity with Ronda entering sports entertainment has ended, at least for now, with the loss of the championship at WrestleMania in the main event.
To my girl, Becky Lynch.
Now that we've had a full year to digest it, give me your take on Ronda Rousey's impact on the WWE and whether or not there is a future of UFC fighters partaking in sports entertainment.
My natural instinct is to trash this. I want to dump all over it because at the end of the day, it was a giant PR stunt. However, I will avoid the cynical side of things that I usually do, and I'm going to commend her because even though her swan song in the UFC was pretty rough, with her
head kicked off,
kind of getting destroyed, I'm actually very impressed with the work. Not necessarily what she was able to do in the ring because obviously WWE's kind of not as authentic, if you will, as UFC, but the commitment that she put forward to get herself into ring shape and to kind of learn how to move around and do everything that she needed to in the ring was actually pretty impressive. Now, from an intrinsic standpoint, where you're looking at the thing outside the ring, I thought it was a sham. It was clearly WWE trying to garner attention by bringing in a big name from UFC. Anybody on the UFC side of things probably couldn't care less, because again, their last memory of Rousey was her getting her nose ripped off her face by a foot as she was kicked into oblivion. But people in the WWE, they like the drama, they like the hype. They're more into the characters and the storyline sort of stuff than they are the actual in-ring product a lot of the time. So I think that she was a good fit in terms of, it was a big name coming in. It sparked curiosity about, could this work? I'd be interested to finish your second point. I'd be interested to see if this does open the door to guys like a Conor McGregor, guys who are probably starting to outgrow the UFC because of their restraints on kind of keeping them in line.
Who's the dude bro in NXT?
His name escapes me right now, but I know who you're talking about. He's kind of like a surfer kind of style guy. He was in the UFC. So, I mean, I don't want to say that it opened the door, because I don't think she was necessarily the first. Obviously not the first to transition from the mixed martial arts style.
I mean, Ken Shamrock was the first.
Absolutely. But I think her being a mainstream name has certainly opened the door for a lot of people to come follow in her footsteps.
I don't see why it wouldn't. The athleticism in the
without a
UFC
question,
transitions over very well.
Yeah. It does.
The endurance and what's the word? Like their cardio.
Oh yeah,
in order to do a match like that. I mean, she definitely helped push the women's
and I think
into the main event, WrestleMania.
From a showmanship standpoint, she definitely has the charisma. She's got that attitude. She's kind of got that aura about her that commands the attention. So I think if there was one person that was going to break down the barrier between the UFC and WWE, I think it would have to.
I mean,
her.
I think Brock has done that too.
Oh, I mean, absolutely.
I mean, she
but
definitely
Brock has the personality of a boulder.
I think that's
too.
a lot of his character, though. I was reading some interviews with him, and because he doesn't do a whole lot of them, he just recently did one, and they were saying like he doesn't do them because he is very blunt, straight to the point.
He's also terrible.
My thing is, I remember going to the Arnold Classic in Columbus about a decade ago and seeing the Strikeforce event where Ronda Rousey and Miesha Tate met for the women's title. And it was billed as beauty versus beauty. I mean, they came down the stairs in evening gowns and then squared up with one another and were ready to fight. I remember going to the weigh-ins. I remember going to the fight. I remember seeing pre-fight, post-fight interviews, all that stuff. Her personality was not like that when she was in Strikeforce. That transition to the UFC built her personality up into being this hard-ass, take no prisoners.
Did it build it up, or did it just kind of let it come out more natural?
It might have let it come out more natural. I know she was very big, but I mean, even when she was in the Olympics, you never heard anything about her
ego.
She wasn't coming out and bragging about it. Granted, a 9-0 undefeated run where your longest fight goes 40 seconds will do that to you.
So let me ask you guys this question. For the second part of that, with potentially other UFC fighters coming into the squared circle, how would you feel?
Matt Riddle is his name.
Yes.
How would you feel if somebody like a Conor McGregor, who had name recognition already, came into the WWE and was immediately thrust into the spotlight? Is that something like traditionalists would hate?
They did that to Ronda.
Yeah.
I mean, as soon as she came in, they immediately put her in a title match.
I mean, she came in and took a Royal Rumble moment away from the winner of the Royal Rumble.
Do people dislike that? Do they think they need to work up?
Well, I think
care?
in the locker room it does.
I would imagine.
And I think some diehard fans, it rubbed them the wrong way that she was immediately brought in and pushed straight to the spotlight. I mean, think about it. If you're a woman on that roster and you've been busting your butt 365 days on the road, traveling, shows, house shows, and you're working your way up, and then out of nowhere, someone who has no wrestling entertainment experience comes in and immediately is thrust above you, that's going to piss you off. It pissed me off.
That's what I was wondering. That's why I wanted to ask.
But I will say that her heel transition was phenomenal. Absolutely phenomenal.
Yeah, but
the heel turn they did, they ran with it. They did exactly what they should have done. Who cares
if you're on the roster? If you're a woman in that locker room, you're pissed.
Yeah, but
they don't
care
the
about
your heel turn.
I don't know that they have any right to be. Because, again, I'm kind of always taking the opposite stance of I always do, but she earned it. She was kind of put in the spotlight, but that doesn't mean that she wasn't spending 16 hours a day at the performance center or, having the in-ring work. She worked with Kurt Angle probably more in 3 months than half those women have. Not half, but the lower portion of the roster probably ever has. So I get it. Her coming in and almost being thrust into the main event is probably going to rub some people the wrong way. But it's not like she came in raw, didn't work her butt off, and just kind of was handed everything.
We were all.
She
I mean, we watched that debut at WrestleMania, and we were all expecting it to just crash and burn.
And I was impressed.
And she was a highlight on the card.
Like she definitely had room to improve
against a person in Stephanie McMahon that you can't necessarily be as good as you can be against because she's not a full-time person anyway.
So I'm going to jump in here real quick. I just got a thing on Bleacher Report that says John Dorsey is trying to get Gerald McCoy from the Buccaneers.
Wow.
I would love for them to do that.
Wow.
Just bulk up that
defensive front. Holy cow.
They
That'd be huge. Sorry to do that.
Wonder what they'd have to give up.
I don't
Duke
know.
Johnson.
Breaking news on the podcast.
Right?
I thought you were going to say like John Dorsey's been rushed to the hospital. And I'm like,
no,
no. It's just starting to get good. But to get back to our point, I get it. There's definitely some animosity in the locker room for people that have kind of been around and paid their dues a lot longer. But
like if
there's
you're Natty,
I mean,
you're not the greatest in ring, but you
or on the microphone or doing anything.
But you've put in a ton of time for that company.
But Natalya Neidhart is probably in the WWE because of her father's namesake. It's not to say that she doesn't work hard or she doesn't really bust it, but she's vanilla ice cream. She's boring to me. She's not very good on the mic. She's decent in the ring.
It's okay.
it's pretty plain, but no. I mean, I to the original point. I don't know that necessarily like kicks down the door, but I think it definitely helps it swing open a lot more for guys like a Conor McGregor, maybe a John Jones. A guy who's had a lot of trouble in the UFC. Staying clean or whatever.
I mean, they still drug tested the WWE.
But hey, who knows? Vince has been known to take a chance on a guy or two, so it's one of those things. If you're John Jones, what do you have to lose except for the rest of your reputation?
That's a fair point.
Already falling to pieces.
Yeah, so I was intrigued to see what the response would be to that question because the reason I thought of it was that somebody on my Facebook timeline made a comment like after WrestleMania was, Ronda Rousey's in wrestling? When did that happen? And I was like, have people not been paying attention to this? So I wanted to see what that would be like. All right, so thank you for...
To her credit, she worked like every week.
Oh, I'm sure.
She wasn't a part-time worker. She
like
came.
Brock.
She showed up.
She
all
is
the
now.
time. She broke her hand and wants to have a kid. And I guarantee when she comes back, her husband will probably be in the ring also.
Interesting.
Travis Brown is probably going to enter the WWE at some point, which will be another UFC transition. Now, Travis Brown's not as big of a name. He was a heavyweight contender for a good 8 to 9 months span, and he is built like a WWE superstar. He's a very strong dude. He's 6'6", 260 heavyweight fighter, so he could be a fun little addition.
Shout out to Ken Shamrock. I know you mentioned that name before, but that's a name, that's a blast from the past. He was one of my absolute favorites in the Attitude Era. Love the dude. I mean, he's the reason that the Intercontinental Championship is one of my favorite because he had it during the time when I started getting involved in watching it. So, that's it. I just wanted to reminisce about him for a hot moment.
Awesome. All right, let's
the
go on.
world's most dangerous man.
Let's go on to our next question. I'm going to throw this next one to Ryan. I'm going to do a little on-the-fly editing of this because we touched on it a little bit in talking about the draft. So I'm going to go a slightly different direction, but that's okay because this was the backup plan. So, Phillip Rivers, Tom Brady, Ben Roethlisberger, Aaron Rodgers. What do they all have in common?
They're 100 years old.
That's actually pretty accurate. So my question to you, Ryan, is, with all of these star quarterbacks, Ben Roethlisberger just got re-signed to a new contract. Aaron Rodgers has a ridiculous contract. Tom Brady seems like he's never going to go away. Do you feel at all that there is a potential of the NFL having a problem with star quarterbacks moving on, allowing their teams to prepare for the future? And we just kind of saw that this weekend with Eli Manning.
In the names you mentioned, no.
Okay.
Because they're still winning.
Okay, that's fair.
I mean, all but Green Bay was in the playoffs with the 4 quarterbacks you mentioned.
Sure.
Chargers were in the AFC Championship game.
Patriots won Super Bowl.
Yeah, so I mean those quarterbacks
did?
Again,
I know, right? Who saw that coming?
Those quarterbacks are still producing.
Mm-hmm.
I don't like the contract extension, the Roethlisberger.
Okay.
I do wish he would move on.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he's still winning, but I think he's holding the team back from moving forward in their future. I was thinking that with the Mason Rudolph?
Mm-hmm.
So by the time Ben is done and retired, so he's got
28.
He's got 3 more years, and Mason Rudolph's going to be going out of his rookie contract, and you have nothing to base his production on because he's not going to see the field.
He's basically suffering the Aaron Rodgers effect in the moment.
Yeah, but he's not going to get an opportunity because you don't know what he is, what
Exactly.
he can do at the NFL level. So his contract's going to run up, and do you resign him? Same thing with Josh Dobbs.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he's
been
same
there 1 year
situation.
longer, right?
Yeah, he
Mhm.
was drafted the year before Rudolph, and then Rudolph was drafted last year.
Mm-hmm.
So what are those guys supposed to do?
Exactly. I feel like that,
Sit back
especially
and
when
get
it
their
comes,
paycheck.
especially when it comes to Eli Manning, that there is a potential in the next few years that we're going to see these teams being held hostage.
I think Eli is definitely holding the Giants hostage.
I agree. 100%
So I think it
happening
depends
right
on
now.
the circumstance. Like I said, a lot of those guys are still winning. There's no reason for them to move on.
Mhm.
And you talked about big contracts with Roethlisberger getting a contract extension, Rodgers getting a huge contract. Tom Brady is like the 15th highest paid quarterback. Like he's middle of the road.
Yeah, he takes very low salary.
And if you think about that, they're able to put their money elsewhere and to build the team around him, and they're consistently winning Super Bowls.
The exact opposite of what Seattle's doing right now.
Let me ask the question a different way. Do you think that with them staying on longer, playing into their early 40s, like 40, 41 years old, does that make it more difficult to prepare for the future because they don't want to take a quarterback in the draft early because they don't want to upset them? Like if the Steelers drafted a first-round quarterback next year, do you think Roethlisberger would be pissed?
Yes.
If you're the general manager and the owner of that team, who cares?
Right, but it seems like that Dave Gettleman, who we've been talking about ad nauseum today, seemed to go the extra mile to take a player that would not upset Eli Manning.
Yeah, if I was a general manager, I mean, my job is determined by the product that is on the field.
This is why we need to get him hired.
But to your point,
Right? Hire me.
But you mentioned earlier that the reason that these guys are still getting these contracts and they're still essentially still sticking around is because they're still winning. So as an NFL general manager, the other side of the fence is you've got to build a championship team when you can. So you know what you've got with a Roethlisberger, with a Rodgers, with a Brady, etc. You've got to do everything you can to put quality pieces around him to get the last bit of talent out of that guy before he calls it quits. Because let's assume that Mason Rudolph, he plays next year or what have you. He could be absolute garbage, and now you're back at square one.
He won't play, though.
Well, I understand, but so you almost are in a, and I said this earlier, you're almost in a damned if you do, damned if you don't. Because let's say instead of trading up to get Devin Bush, the Steelers took Dwayne Haskins. So you're trading up, you're focusing on the future while you're kind of gambling the present. So it's that fine line that these GMs have to walk between: do I improve my team in the immediate and future, or do I mortgage everything and just go for it now, or do I essentially tank and go for the future?
So every situation is going to be different. And I think you have to take that into consideration. Like, knowing that you just signed Roethlisberger 3 more years, you wouldn't take Haskins.
Right, and I think that was kind of their point.
And you have to gauge where your team is, and that's part of being a good general manager.
Right.
Like, with the Giants, you have to know that Eli doesn't have much longer left in him. And even when he was in his prime, he was still a middle-of-the-road quarterback. Say what you want about him winning 2 Super Bowls. Eli Manning has never been a top 10 quarterback in the NFL.
I would agree with that.
Agreed.
But you see a lot of the rookie minimums for quarterbacks are guaranteed towards building a team around that quarterback.
Right.
You see the Eagles, who had a rookie minimum with Carson Wentz, and all of a sudden the Eagles could pull all these pieces together and make a Super Bowl run. You saw the same thing with the Rams.
Mm-hmm.
Will we see this? I mean, people are talking about seeing the same thing with Baker Mayfield. God,
Mahomes,
hope it happens. Mahomes, same thing. Real deep in the playoffs last year. That rookie minimum that you get allows you to build that team around them. But when that rookie minimum expires, what's going to happen?
You're going to have situations like in Seattle where Russell Wilson is commanding a ridiculous contract, which is going to hamstring them from being able to sign. I mean, you've already seen it. They had to get rid of Frank Clark. They've lost Earl Thomas. Granted, and a lot of these are not just for salary reasons. A lot of them
they wanted to get rid of Frank Clark.
Yeah, but I mean, look at what happened with the Ravens just a few years ago when Joe Flacco signed that ridiculous mega deal that was crazy by the standard back then. It forced the team to essentially ship out a lot of their veterans. I think they got rid of Anquan Bolden that next season after they won the Super Bowl. They had to essentially tear down from their veterans and hope for a lot of production from younger guys.
I mean, from a quarterback's point of view, I mean, you're going to try to get as much as you can out of it.
Well, I mean, for every position you're going to do that.
But general managers can't be like, yeah, this is what you did for me in the past, so I'm going to give you a little leeway and give you a little slack. Like, if I'm a GM, my job is on the line. Right. I'm going to do what I have to do to put a winning product on the field.
But if you're a GM who's made 10 out of the last 12 years in the playoffs, your job's not necessarily on the line.
Yeah, it could be. But if you're a quarterback who is consistently in the top 10 statistic-wise, what's stopping you from saying, well, I know that I've been here for 10 years and you're going to offer me $13 million a year. Well, I can go to this team that won 2 games and they'll give me $16 million a year.
I mean, you got to see how much.
At some point, you're just going to take the money and say to hell with winning.
Not if they're under contract.
Well, no, that's what I'm saying. But like these extensions and these mega deals that are coming out of nowhere they're just now starting to kind of hit.
I wouldn't do it. If I was a general manager and I was in your shoes and you wanted an extension, cool, but it's going to be an extension that is going to be beneficial for both of us.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you want to find a middle ground, but at the end of the day, like I said, you kind of have to determine what's more important, winning now or building for the future.
I think successful teams have found a way to do both.
I think they have too.
Oh,
there's a way to not draft a quarterback. I think Pittsburgh drafted Rudolph in the 3rd round?
I think so.
Yeah.
I mean, if you had no intention of him playing, you had Josh Dobbs, who you spent I think a third or 4th round pick on the year before.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you're not helping your team by drafting Mason Rudolph, but you did it anyways.
Well,
and then you turn around and you sign Roethlisberger to another 3-year extension.
So to kind of go back to your breaking news from the last one. So the rumor is that Browns general manager John Dorsey is basically kicking the tires on Gerald McCoy.
For Duke.
So the reason why is because you've got guys like Baker and Myles Garrett on their rookie contracts. They're extremely cheap.
Yeah, but most rookies who come in, I mean,
exactly. That's why they're on a win now kind of mode because they've got a lot of the pieces around him. They're going to do. They're essentially in a we need to win it this year or next kind of a situation.
You saw the same thing with the Rams last year,
right? Because I think it's not next year, but the year after is when Garrett's contract is going to be up. The next year would be Baker. So you have to get as much value out of these guys as you can when they're still on the cheap.
And Garrett's going to get a monster.
Garrett's going to get a monster deal.
That's when you take every team. You look at Aaron Rodgers, and he has had health problems every year for, the past 3 years?
Because they can't afford an offensive line.
I understand that, but you want to still...
Because you're paying Rodgers too much.
Yeah, I mean, he's the highest paid quarterback in the NFL until Russell Wilson got his contract. But right now, you have to be looking like, hey, is there a guy I can get in the 3rd round who I could put behind Rodgers for 2 years and still find ways to build around my team?
You got to look too that the CBA is going to expire and the cap is going to go up. It goes up every time.
It goes up every year.
We're looking at
it doesn't have to be the CBA,
contracts. But that's what's coming down the pike is fully guaranteed for everybody. But to your point about Green Bay needs to start grooming somebody for the future, like that should have been a year ago. That they I love Aaron Rodgers. I think he's fantastic, but the guy's on the decline. The fact that his salary commands what it does, it has affected them in their ability to get quality players around him. Like you look at they brought in.
I mean, Baltimore.
Graham,
you talked about it was the prime example.
Flacco.
Yeah. I mean,
they won a Super Bowl
and they just blew it up.
And they paid Flacco a ton of money, and they couldn't afford to do anything else.
And what have they done since?
Nothing.
They traded Flacco and they drafted a kid who runs.
A running
back. They drafted
back
a track star
at quarterback.
A lot of things have happened in Baltimore.
Baltimore will pick number 1 overall next year.
So I think what we're gonna see is these teams that have these quarterbacks left over from 2004, 2005, those contracts are gonna run out. They're gonna retire, and then they're finally gonna get in on the rookie wage scale with their quarterbacks. So
that's kind of terrifying for some of these teams.
Yeah, it is kind of actually.
The Patriots being able to pay a rookie minimum.
I will give teams like the Steelers credit because you may not be grooming your next future starter, but at least you got really good depth if he were to go down. Because I remind myself when Aaron Rodgers got hurt the first time, his backups were Brian Brom and some other scrub I can't remember.
So,
I liked Mason Rudolph last year. I liked the pick, but I like the pick knowing that Roethlisberger only had
Matt Flynn.
another, including this last year, 2 years left on his contract. I don't like it now that you've re-signed him and you've added 2 more years. So now he's got 3 years remaining this year and 2 more after.
It's
because
strange.
It seems like it was a wasted pick.
I think it's crazy too that all this keeps happening to the Steelers. That's the crazy thing. You have top 3 best run franchises in the NFL.
Top 1.
Probably in sports. Best run in professional sports.
You could make that argument.
And all of a sudden, it's like the last 2-3 years, it's everything's
things
falling
come
apart.
And like
things come in waves.
Like the craziest thing too with
you know what doesn't? Head coaches for the Steelers. Those don't come in waves.
The craziest thing with that whole ordeal was Antonio Brown and Le'Veon Bell started off as team guys, and as soon as they started getting popular and people started like they're the best in the league and they're the best in the league and this and that, and they got big-headed, and then it went downhill. And that's not like the type of character guys that Pittsburgh has. And I think that's a reason why they didn't really have a hard time letting them go.
Sure.
I mean, we talked about it before. Anybody who's ever had an issue with Pittsburgh, they don't keep around. They let them go.
And generally, they don't do anything after that.
Not too much.
You know, you look at a guy like Santonio Holmes, he goes to the Jets and does...
He disappeared. Mike Wallace gone. Plexico Burr shoots himself.
Quite literally.
Yeah.
All right.
So, I mean, there's definitely something to say about them, the way they're run, but I almost feel like every team has to hit that reset button every so often.
Yeah, they should reset it with Tomlin before they reset it.
Well, I mean, I'm not necessarily picking on the Steelers, but, you know, to Andy's point about how these quarterbacks, the kind of the ones that we grew up watching, the really good ones, your Breeze, your Brady, your Rodgers, Roethlisberger, etc., Rivers.
It's going to be fun telling Mason about
It's
those
almost
days.
like as soon as they're gone, you have to just blow it up and start over. I mean, I don't know that you necessarily can do that balancing act anymore because of the way that the salaries are.
Think of that craziness too. Like my dad talks about growing up watching, you know, Troy Aikman and Jim Kelly and Joe Montana and these guys play.
Oh yeah,
and we're gonna go. Like I'm gonna tell Mason about watching Tom Brady play, watching
and Johnny Manziel and Derek Anderson,
watching Drew Brees.
Mason, by the way, is the little tiny kid voice.
Yeah, he's Nick's son, which we should have introduced him at the beginning, not just some random.
He's phenomenal.
If you hear that in the background, we apologize.
No, we don't. We don't apologize.
He adds depth.
So that's actually an interesting segue into the last question, which is going to be presented for Mr. Nick Storian.
We're getting really good at segues.
You had mentioned watching the past and remembering the past, like Troy Aikman and Dan Marino and John Elway. So I have some names for you, just to sort of keep the theme of poetry to introduce these things. So for you, Nick, I pose this: Steve Nash, Dan Marino, Charles Barkley, Ken Griffey Jr. What do they have in common?
Never won a championship.
Bingo! Give John his pizza prize.
Wow.
We're looking at it.
They never won the big one. So, and I saved this for last because I think this is going to get heated.
This is the best part.
When it comes to sports and evaluating who is worthy of being called the greatest to ever play the game, we often attribute accolades as a correlation of success. Okay. But are we as critics engaging in good faith when we argue that about regarding titles? Most fans know the number of Super Bowls a quarterback has won, but I highly doubt anybody in this room, without using Google, no cheating, knows how many World Series rings Derek Jeter has. Maybe this guy knows how many Stanley Cups Mario Lemieux has hoisted.
I do.
Awesome.
I don't.
He has 2.
So give me your take on
96, 97.
If 91, 92.
If and how we should use championships to measure greatness.
Hold on. Before, actually, Lemieux was the owner when they won all their Stanley Cups.
So technically
he has.
Technically,
he has
4.
3?
5.
Because they won 2.
Yeah.
And they won 1.
2016, 2017, 91, 92, and 2009.
For the record, Derek Jeter has 5 World Series rings.
I would have said 6, but
I mean,
I'd have been wrong.
Your classic argument to this entire point, and we got into it a little bit last time when we talked about favorite players of all time.
Mm-hmm.
We talked about Michael Jordan being the best basketball player of all time because he was 1,000% in the NBA title. I'm in the best individual basketball player of all time being LeBron James because individually his contributions have been better than Jordan's. He's done more with less, but the argument that everyone every time brings up is going there and losing. and that's what you're going to be remembered for. I don't think it's fair to the players to base it all on championships. All these good players, it's a team sport.
Mm-hmm.
It's not just you. In basketball, it's you and 4 other guys. Well, 9 other guys, whatever.
So you're arguing that you weigh the championships a little bit less?
I would weigh them less than the individual accomplishments, yes.
Okay.
I think we get blinded by titles.
We're just talking about Eli Manning having 2 Super Bowls.
I was just going to say, so
we did not want to give him any credit for that in that last segment, did we?
No,
not at all.
Trent Topher has one too.
Yeah.
So that can anybody see? So I did just use Google.
Who was the quarterback for the Buccaneers?
Brad Johnson.
Brad Johnson.
Can you tell me which running back has the most Super Bowl rings in NFL history?
I cannot.
God, it's probably is it
Emmitt Smith?
No.
Roger Craig.
Who was running for the 49ers?
Roger Craig.
So according to this, it is LeGarrette Blount joins the elite company of Derek Lavelle and Mike Walter. So if you tell me right now that any of those 3 are better than a Barry Sanders or a Jim Brown, get out of here. You don't have any business talking about sports. So that just goes to prove how the big one conversation always gets always blinds.
I mean, it has to get weighed a little bit, but
it definitely helps the argument.
It helps.
I think that there's too much emphasis put on it. I mean, Dan Marino is a top 10 quarterback, hands down. If he would have won a Super Bowl, would that have put him into the top 5?
I mean, he's a Hall of Famer without it, so
Yeah.
I don't know what else he could do.
I mean, I think when you're talking about individuals, I think if they are in the Hall of Fame is more of a better standing point than how many championships they won. Winning championships helps you get into the Hall of Fame. So, there is weight on it, but at the end of the day, I don't think it should be the end-all, be-all of determining, the greatness of a particular player.
So I did a little bit of homework for this question. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar has 6 NBA titles, but he's not the leader. The leader is actually with 7, and it's Robert Horry.
Celtic.
Whoa, he was with the Spurs. He was with the Bulls too, wasn't he?
He just moved around and won all the time.
He was the Kevin Durant of his time.
He was clutch though. I
Yeah.
mean, he hit some big shots when he played.
And in the other sports, most World Series rings goes to Yogi Berra.
Okay.
Never
And
heard of her.
you can probably fact check me on this. I don't know if this is accurate. This was just a quick 5-minute search. 11 Stanley Cups from 1956 to 73 with the Montreal Canadiens was Henry Richard.
The Canadians were unbeatable during that time period.
That's what it sounds
Because
like.
they invented the game. That's not fair.
Yeah, that Canadian team and the Canadians in the 70s were
Like Norway playing Cuba in baseball.
they were just
expecting to win.
you couldn't do anything with them. But back then too, you have to understand with the NHL, there were only 6 teams.
That's true. There was a lot less.
You had the original 6. It wasn't until 80 something. No, 67, 68 was when the Penguins came in.
I have to believe you on that one. I did no research on that.
So answer me this. We're very quick to not discredit, but not give credit to Eli Manning for what happened with the 2 Super Bowls with the Giants. Why are we so hesitant to maybe do that with Tom Brady? I myself will absolutely rip the guy, but other people will be like, he's the greatest of all time.
Everybody had this argument when he broke his leg.
Who, Tom Brady?
Yes.
Okay.
Everybody had this argument because you had, God, what was his?
Matt Castle.
Matt Castle come in and still go
10-6.
11-5.
Yeah.
They went 11-5 and did not make the playoffs.
Yeah.
No.
One of those bizarre years.
But that was the same argument: was it Brady or was it the scheme? Could you take John and plug him into that offense?
No, you could not. I can confirm that you could not win a title.
Scheme aside, because we can, obviously look at other sports like basketball and baseball where scheme doesn't attribute as much as maybe in the NFL, but just the fact that he's won 6, Eli Manning's won 2. We're all over Tom Brady. We're all over Tom Brady for, the pictures are everywhere, him holding his rings on his hand and everything. And, everybody's just so quick to dismiss Eli.
Who else has 6? Adam Vinatieri.
Yeah, and he probably deserves credit for at least 3 of them.
5.
I don't think he has 6.
Yeah, but who put him in position to make those
Bill
kicks?
Belichick.
You know who doesn't have any? Jim Kelly.
Good dude.
Good, great dude.
4 in a row.
So, but that
I
leads
love
to
Tom
the
Brady.
Huh?
I love Tom Brady.
You can absolutely love him.
I do.
There's nothing wrong with that.
So
there's nothing wrong with. I'm just asking.
If you put someone else in at quarterback against the Atlanta Falcons,
a decent quarterback,
do they make that comeback?
Yes,
if
because I
you
think
put
it's just as much
decent
Atlanta
quarterback
choking.
in there, yes.
I get what you're saying. Like
Tom Brady is one of, if
irreplaceable,
not
but-
the most fiercest competitors in all of the NFL, hands down.
What if you put Jay Cutler behind that team? Do
Yeah,
they win?
no, not going to happen.
I think if
He's on the sidelines with the smoke.
He's the ultimate don't care.
I honest to God believe that if you put Deshaun Kizner in an offense run by a team that is coached by Bill Belichick, you're going to win 10 games.
Bill Belichick's a defensive coach.
Doesn't matter.
He's the best coach of all time.
The best coach
Hands
of all
down.
time.
I agree.
Best game planning coach.
I will not knock Bill Belichick.
I
Dude is
mean,
a genius.
I know we talked earlier about quarterbacks being put in certain situations.
Sure.
Would Tom Brady be
Right.
better if?
The
I mean,
Jets.
would he have the same kind of success if he went to another team?
Not a chance.
No.
Yeah, but that's the thing. I mean,
Tom Brady wasn't supposed to play. If Drew Bledsoe would have never went down, you would have never seen.
You don't
Tom Brady.
know.
They were actually very.
I mean, you can say that about anybody.
They were actually very upset that they drafted him because they had Bledsoe. They had a veteran backup whose name escapes me, and they had just drafted Michael Bishop the year before.
It was the old days of the 3-point stance Patriot.
Oh, the old logo you're talking about.
That's a dope logo.
The AFL logo.
I mean,
love
that-
the Reds. with
So
the
much
logo.
better than the current
You know
one.
that actually walks into another question: is do you believe that people would have the same success in other places? Like
That's you
Certain
open up
ones,
a whole.
yes.
It's
you
a whole
open up
can of
whole-
worms.
Yeah.
So to your point about Tom Brady, and I've said this from the get-go, Tom Brady in his entire career had two bona fide superstars on offense: Randy Moss in his twilight years and Gronk. I won't listen to any argument about anybody else. And the argument that it was always, in our generation, it was always Peyton versus Brady. The reason that I consider Brady better is because Peyton Manning's team was designed around him. It was a passing offense. The defense really didn't make a whole lot of headway. He had guys like Reggie Wayne, Dallas Clark, Marvin Harrison. He had Joseph Adai coming out of the backfield. And Jeff Saturday blocking. Back in those days, he had a very conducive offense to him. Tom Brady went into a Patriots situation where it was a defensive football team that was run first with Corey Dillon, had no-name guys at receiver, no-name guys at tight end, decent offensive line, and they won titles. So you fast forward a little bit, he's making guys like Julian Edelman, Danny Amendola.
Is he or
Wes
is
Welker.
Belichick doing it?
I mean, I'm not going to sit here
At the end of the day,
take it away from Brady.
You still have to make the throws. You have to be accurate with them. You have to make the right decision.
I
How many
agree.
times does he get to the line and he's audibling and changing the play based off of what he sees on the defensive end?
he audibles to a check down because he can hit it.
But then why not?
Because it's open, to be fair.
Yeah,
The only defense is-
I mean, it's
That's
smart.
the argument. That's the argument he's making, is that the individual effort should outweigh the championship result.
Which it absolutely should, but it's not how we
Statistically,
as sports fans think.
he's like his yearly stats are still up there in the top 5 or 10 with yards and completions and completion percent. I mean, his completion percentage is through the roof. He doesn't throw a ton of interceptions.
It's not hard
No.
when you throw 12 feet.
I love how I'm getting some of you on board with
You
this.
still have to throw
You still
the
have to throw
ball
it, and you
into
still
the
have to hit the
receiver's
guy.
hands.
Right.
It doesn't matter how far you throw it.
Well, they kind of just ripped Daniel Jones very hard for having a low average yards per attempt over the weekend. Really ripped him hard.
How was his completion percentage on his other passes?
I don't know.
It was still terrible.
Horrendous. Yeah, not good.
I mean, championships have to be weighed in a little bit.
I agree. They
Individual statistics, I think, should be weighed in as well. I mean, if you're doing well and your team just sucks, I mean, we'll go back to the general manager not preparing the team for the
I mean,
future.
let's be
Aaron
full
Rodgers.
circle.
Aaron Rodgers.
let's be realistic here.
I mean,
By
you might
the
do something stupid like draft a safety at 21 when you trade up from 30.
By the time we'll go back to LeBron James. By the time LeBron James retires, he is going to have most, if not all, of the individual player records in the NBA.
So you had mentioned earlier that he had nobody around him. So do you weigh that into effect as well? He had to score because he didn't have anyone around him.
You certainly can.
I mean, you could take any stat.
They took that team. I mean, he took
Hold on.
Sasha Pavlovich.
It doesn't matter. You could
to
take
the NBA championship.
You can
Wow,
take
what a name drop.
any stat and you could turn it for your own argument.
You can.
Absolutely.
100%.
Statistics are stupid.
You can't spin statistics. That's why I think it's easier to give everybody a pass in baseball when they don't have World Series rings, because you can be a
Baseball.
You can be a
Baseball is the
monster all season.
Baseball is the only professional sport, where they're not even teams. It's 1 on 9.
Mm-hmm.
That's the only
Essentially.
sport where you do that.
Well, yeah, because football you play.
Yeah, but you play 11 on 11.
Math is
And
fun.
I think championships in baseball is skewed a little bit because not having a salary cap.
Not having a
You
cap
can buy
helps a
one.
lot.
Sure.
I mean,
you got half the field is already at a
and baseball
disadvantage.
is at such a you have so many moving parts in baseball. You have 5 starting pitchers on a rotation. You have a bullpen, closers, setup guys. You have
a catcher,
9 fielders, hitters, DH, pinch hitters, pinch runners, infield, utility,
backup catcher.
Do you guys all remember back
catcher.
before Peyton Manning won his first Super Bowl that everybody was saying, boy, he needs to win one to help his resume? Was that fair at the time?
No. So you mentioned that the statistics can say anything you want them to. So I remember before Peyton went to Denver and won the second Super Bowl with the Broncos. By the way, first quarterback to ever win a Super Bowl with 2 different franchises, I must add, as a starter.
Love the stat.
So prior to that, let's rewind. His younger brother Eli, who nobody in their right mind, no sports fan would look at the two's resume and say that Eli's better. Eli had more rings at the time.
Okay.
So the point that you made,
that Indy win was ugly.
Oh yeah, they played a horrible
That
Bears
was-
team.
and the
Bears.
Broncos win
Ugly
was
Super
because
Bowl.
of the defense.
but you know, it's just, so that kind of cements the point that we look at these titles as if they're the most important thing, whereas an MVP or a passing title or whatever kind of falls by the wayside. I know that I'm not the on the popular side here, but I think Matthew Stafford is probably one of the most underrated quarterbacks in the NFL.
That's why
The
you
dude
draft him
is
every year.
constantly
With
putting up numbers.
I mean,
with
since
nothing.
Calvin Johnson left, he hasn't had anybody around.
His number one receiver a couple years ago was Golden Tate, and like, there's not. Don't get me wrong, Golden Tate's a fine player, but he's not a number one receiver.
No.
I mean, outside of Galladay, name one receiver on the line.
He was a running back at Notre Dame before they moved him to wideout.
Yep.
No kidding.
Yeah,
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
So, it just goes to say, to kind of your point, Keller, you have to almost have a perfect situation, because at the end of the day, Matthew Stafford's career is probably going to be a giant waste. He's not going to be in the Hall of Fame. He's not going to be considered. Phillip Rivers, I think, is a fringe guy. I think he's leaning toward.
I'd like to compare stats between Phillip Rivers and Matthew Stafford and see.
I think they're going to weigh in the favor of Stafford.
How comparable they are. I mean, I know L.A., I guess.
Yeah,
LA now.
LA now.
I mean, they've been to a couple of AFC Championships games and have had some playoff runs. I mean, the Lions
he's
haven't.
never had anything on that team.
Like I said,
Antonio Gates.
See, everything has to. That's why everything has to be given like a weight.
Yeah,
and you take everything into consideration. I don't think
but
it's.
that
I don't
think situation is different.
I don't
that
think
weight is always going to be different too.
Yeah,
Somebody's always going to rate a running back higher than a wide receiver, or whatever.
Everything's subjective.
Catcher higher than a center fielder.
I mean, all this stuff is subjective. I mean, one person can be like, "Yeah, he is." Other person can be. I mean,
that's why all these people that get in on a committee vote and not just one person appointing them.
Yeah, I mean, and that's how it should be.
Yeah, that's how it should be.
Yeah. I like the idea of having a committee and having a group of people getting together, having a discussion, saying this is why I think so, and then hearing somebody else's rebuttal, and as this is why I think so.
Hence, the show.
The debate is good, and
boy, to be a fly on the wall for those.
God, that'd be awesome.
Let's sneak into one.
I wanna. I keep trying to get my.
Do we elect Frank Gore?
We live
God,
in.
no, absolutely not.
Why?
Most overrated player in the history of the league.
But
I'm sorry.
Here we go.
I live in Canton, and I've been
Huge
trying.
running guards.
I've been trying to get my wife to get a job at the Pro Football Hall of Fame.
That would be sweet.
I've met David Baker a couple times. This place I used to work at, we used to cater for. I'm not dropping their name because
that's fair.
Yeah, we used to cater the Hall of Fame events, and David Baker would come through, and he is a phenomenal man. And I would, when he goes and tells people, "Congratulations, welcome to the Hall of Fame," he knocks on their door. Like, I get chills.
Oh, it'd be so cool.
And I would love to just sit in there and listen to all those guys talk.
It probably sounds exactly like this.
I would hope so. I would really hope so.
I can't believe you brought up Frank Gore. Now I'm upset.
We've irritated the
when he
mob.
makes it into the Hall of Fame in 4 years, you're going to be more upset.
No, I will boycott the NFL for the rest of my life. Absolutely, at 0 point ever in human existence. Even in Frank Gore's house, he was never the best running back. He's just because you've played for 150 years doesn't mean that you're a Hall of Famer. Everybody can accumulate stats.
All right. Well, I think that's going to do it for us today.
That was good.
I hope you guys enjoyed it.
Mason, do you want to sign off?
Mason, you want to say hello?
Sign off.
Come here. Say bye.
Say bye into the microphone. Correct.
So if there's some background noise, again, we apologize.
There's a baby.
He's waving.
We're four guys sitting in the living room with a mixing board, a computer, and some microphones. So we're trying to make this
and
work.
Some pizza from Coca's Pizza.
But we hope you guys enjoyed it. Hope you enjoyed our Voices of Reason. Until next time, turn up the voice.